Chisco is going to join us very shortly. But welcome everybody to another third match today. Chisco, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, hey, sorry I was muted. That's my bad. I'm like bringing all this hype and all this energy. I'm like, oh my gosh, my microphone is muted. GG. What's going on, everybody? Today we're casting a legendary Ark of Osiris matchup. Han Casilla versus NewV. That's 64 PL versus NewV. And this should be an awesome matchup. I realized, by the way, Dragothian, I'm actually battling against this group in KVK right now. Of course, this is actually a separate Ark of Osiris League Grand Prix environment where all these games are taking place. And for this matchup, every team has access to the same stuff. That means they've got access to every commander in the game. They've got access to 5 sets of every single piece of equipment, their choice of city theme and civilization. It's hype. It comes down to skill and execution. How are you feeling about this matchup today, Drago?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like we're in for another really, really solid matchup between two really good teams. Obviously, NewV, an extension or piece of 1V. So we saw 1V this morning get their victory today. I'm sure NewV is looking to do the same against 64 PL. Both teams really strong. Both teams have performed very well, or at least the players in both of these teams have performed very well in the Osiris League system. Both teams are also, as you mentioned before, in KVK. You're fighting 64 PL. NewV is a part of Kingdom 34, also in a very contentious Heroic Anthem Pioneer. Well, Heroic Anthem Power Up, I guess, is what it's called. But they're all fighting. So fighting here, fighting there. We get to enjoy this piece of it at least, and certainly looking forward to the next hour as both of these teams unveil their strategy. I'm curious if NewV changes a little bit up to school. They were so dominant as far as execution-wise last week. Didn't necessarily show up domination-wise on the scorecard so much, but certainly the actual execution was very, very strong, and I could probably see them doing the same thing here. 64 PL might need to do something a little bit different. What are your thoughts? Do you think they're going to change anything up? Do you think they're going to keep things the same? We're going to have to see, I guess, but love to hear your thoughts.
You know, I think they're definitely going to learn from the previous week and what went down. I think 64 PL, from what I've learned of them, they're a really serious kingdom. And so they will have studied what NewV is doing. They will adapt, even though they've been a little distracted battling in KVK all week, and it's been pretty intense. I'm sure they're putting in the reps to prepare for this matchup. And the same is true of NewV. No doubt they've been studying what 64 PL did in their last matchup. And if they're going to make any adjustments, they'll make them. I'll say that they're also all probably watching all of the other matches to see if there's anything that happens that they want to emulate. So I think we should see the best of all strategies emerging in this matchup. And at some point in this tournament, I think we'll settle on whatever the meta is. Maybe not this round of battles, maybe not next round of battles, but in the final 4 and final match, I think that's what we can expect. So in blue, 64 PL, Han Casilla. In red, NewV, that's Next Gen 1V. This is our 16 UTC matchup, and it's full of hype. Drago, do you think this is going to be a less than 5,000 point game? Or do you think it's going to be a 10,000 point game or more?
You know, I always want to see a less than 5,000 point game as we get into the lineup for 64 PL. I think maybe if I had to make a, gun to my head prediction, I think new 1V is going to, or next gen 1V, I should say, is going to take it. And will it be over 5,000 points? Probably. Key combatants here for 64 PL: Kitty, Meow, YGG, Endless, RTRW0604. Lots of letters and consonants and numbers in there. Odin, Kitty Meow again, and 6. I'm familiar with a few of these players, having fought with a bunch of them. Chisco, let's see what the red team Next Gen 1V looks like, though, as it's coming up here very shortly.
NewV lineup here. I believe, although I might be wrong, that this is actually the invited team from 1V. I'm not sure where they put their main team players and where they put their invited team, but the kingdom of 1v actually has 2 teams in this tournament, and if I'm not mistaken, this NewV team has the strongest players from their kingdom. They demonstrated this in their battle against 60 GT last week. The captain, I Am Strong, on screen, as well as the Duke and 4 others highlighted as the key combatants today. This should be an exciting matchup. This is the sort of top-tier gameplay where you watch, you study, and you learn everything you can, just like we saw in previous matchups earlier today. There is just so much to learn from every game that we watch. I know I feel like I am just getting better and better simply by watching these incredible players play the game.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, obviously we've gotten the chance to really cast a lot of these Osiris League champions and playoffs, and I know whenever I was the one planning anyway, the strategy for my Alliance's team definitely brought back everything that I could seeing these things. We're going to get the chance to do the same thing here in the Grand Prix. JST was a prime example last match of really showing what needs to be done to win all phases of the game. I think they lost a little bit on the provisions, but when you dominate so heavily by 20,000 points and all the other ones, who really cares? But we do have 64 PL coming into the match here, Chisco. I also want to kind of point out too, before I really just kind of hand this over to you and you get to do your thing. This game, not only we're seeing these 2 teams pour in here, this game brings together players from around the world, fans from around the world. I see a lot of them in chat right now too, from the community, from the fan base. I'd love for everybody in the chat to go ahead and shout out where they're viewing from, where they're hailing from, so we can get a good idea of where everybody is viewing this amazing match about to come from.
The 64 PL team looks like they're mostly teleported in. We've got 1 minute and 45 seconds left in the prep phase of the battle. A few more making their way into the battle here. I'll remind you, by the way, we talked about this earlier in the day, but the teleport order into this matchup is very important. I myself have been tasked with joining a rally at the start and found myself to be over a minute away, which means I'm delaying the rally unless I hop through cities. So the teleport order here is very important for getting you positioned close to where the rallies are that you're going to join, and also potentially closer to where you need to walk to. You see NewV now also executing a series of sequenced entries into the battle, even with a minute remaining. They only now, I think, still have players porting in, right? So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they're calling out player by player who's supposed to enter and when, making sure they're in. And with now 50 seconds remaining, I believe the majority of both teams are fully ported into the battle and are ready to go. As a reminder, in this format, you can only bring 30 players and have 5 substitutes. So if you need to sub somebody in, that person does need to join the battle after the timer has gone down to 0.
What's really funny? I think a lot of the players in this matchup actually, you're looking at these 453 million power totals. Some of these players in these games actually have way more than that. So I know a lot of us out there viewing, right? We're like, oh my goodness, 453 million power. I would love to have that. Some of these players in these matches are actually like, where's all my troops? I'm missing troops. Where can I have my troops back? As the countdown starts again, really looking forward to seeing the strategies unfolded here. NewV again pouring their marches out, split screen action in effect. Marches pouring through the gate here. Chisco, do we see anything special? I see some T1s coming out. I don't see any siege yet, so wondering if provisioning will be a focus from either one of these teams.
It's really interesting. I don't think we've seen any of the winning teams have siege come marching out of the gate at the start. So to me, this signals that the idea that you provision from the very start of the battle might actually be outdated. Like I said, every time we play this, there's new insights, right? But if they're not bringing siege at the start, that means that they have more marches for the initial action. And you better believe that even just 5 extra marches, taking, let's say, an altar, the desert altar specifically, is really important and could be the difference maker. So I actually like that we're seeing that. And although we can't study every single march that left all the cities, here we see hard push being activated. I would be remiss to not say that I think a lot of these teams might not open with provisioning, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. When we're talking about seconds count, right? Focusing those marches on points that matter at the beginning, and maybe needing those 5 or 6 extra marches at the Desert Altar on the opponent's side to take that structure and get that first occupation score. Provisioning has taken a little bit of a back seat from points standpoint. They used to be huge. You used to see 15,000, 16,000 point totals sometimes on provisioning with a competitive match, and now generally you're sitting at that 4,000 to 5,000 range for teams that actually focus on it, right? So I think that really focusing all of your marches and energy on capturing those 750 crucial points from the Desert Altars of your opponent, that's a 1,500 point swing for any side that's able to accomplish that, and then flowing to the middle, right, Chisco, for those always fun to watch arc battles.
Yeah, it does look like 64PL is missing one of the outposts. So there we go. Now the structure game is relatively
every
even.
time.
So what we've seen every single matchup here without failure is a full commitment to pushing inside lane, which is where the Desert Altars are. You run through the Shrine of War to the Desert Altar. Now there may be aggression on other things, but it seems like teams these days are dismissing the idea of going other places. In other words, if we can get close to taking that altar, what if instead of sending someone to go take a Shrine of Life, we just send everybody to the Desert Altar, and then we can get it for sure? I feel like that's the direction teams are moving, and as the meta moves in that direction, that means more defensive commitment goes into that same altar, that same lane, and it locks in this strategy even more. I don't think we'll see anything today that shakes that up. I expect we'll see exactly the same thing we've been seeing. Now, I do like that some marches from 64PL have arrived first. However, they're looking a little bit outnumbered here, and NewV in red is looking to break this fight as fast as possible. Looks like, ooh, that XY with Honda Tadakatsu barely escaping the snipe there, pulling back just in time to the reinforcements arriving.
Yeah, that's a nice little push coming in from the top left corner for 64PL. You worried a little bit for those 5 or 6 marches that were showing on the screen at the time, but then the camera moved just ever so slightly and unveiled the swarm that was coming from 64PL. But now we see the swarm for NewV also starting to pour in. I think 64PL did a great job positioning this fight. There's still a little bit of a buffer between the NewV folks and their own Desert Altar, but you all know how quickly this can shift upwards by about a third of a screen, and then the Desert Altar is under duress. Both Desert Altars being viewed here. Again, this is the standard execution strategy for most top-tier teams and even the non-top-tier teams. It's just a matter of how well you do it as far as if you're top-tier or not, but both battles raging in front of the Desert Altars. I can't quite tell on the right side if it's on top of the Desert Altar or a little bit off of it. Looks more open field than altar-ish. Maybe that's the bottom right corner, that little square, that black square there on the bottom right. That might be the Desert Altar. So it looks like both fights happening in front, which is exactly what the defending team wants. They want to keep that edge as 20 seconds start to tick down for these buildings to open.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell. Oh, which altar we're looking at. Okay, yeah. So you're right. That is the defensive advantage for both teams. That's even. I mean, the symmetry here is actually shocking. 5 seconds till this opens up, and capture goes red, capture goes red. NewV on both structures. Will they get a garrison? Jad in one, and looks like a Nevsky in the other. Not the worst choice when you're getting targeted. There's a chance to proc 30% health, but not the best choice either.
I think 64PL Chisco is doing the exact right move here. They did lose the structure at the beginning, but instead of panicking and starting to swarm the structure and forgetting about all the open field marches, they're still clearing the open field. That's what really keeps these structures to the point of being able to capture those first occupation totals. They're doing a good job of swarming the open field first, getting rid of all of that stuff there, and then taking the structure back. That's what's going to help them do it. And now they have it, and now red is forced on the initiative, and they're losing because all their marches are less than half health.
Let me tell you, we started with 64 PL having none of these altars, and now they have both of them.
They got both.
This is an interesting switch. Next Gen 1V has got to be thinking, wait a minute. What's going on here? How did we lose both altars? 3 altars in the hands of Hand Casilla. That's 64 PL. 1 altar in the hands of NewV. So I thought for a moment they might actually have all 4 for 64 PL, but
Gotta
it
see
looks
that Desert
like
Altar fight. I'm looking forward to that.
3.
Yeah, let's go. Hopefully we can go see that Desert Altar fight on the bottom lane. That's going to be critical. That's 750 points for the winner. I wonder if 64 PL can hold it. I think there was a minute 15 seconds left before it captured for the blue team 64 PL. Now we're starting to go to the middle, though, and see NewV starting to pour in very early. I think it's probably going to pop up here on the screen whether... There we go. Has the timer gone down yet?
This is
Can you
what
tell?
we
5
want to
seconds.
see.
4, 3, 2, 1.
I think it's 45 seconds.
There it is. Oh, is it 45? Oh, 20. It was 25.
Yeah, I think there's just a
16,
little bit longer
15.
on this Desert Altar. But, I mean, I don't see many marches here to contest it. It's really low, though. I mean,
I think 64 PL
all
has
it would take is a couple marches swinging in here to prevent this from flipping the initial points. And Drago, you're spot on to say this Desert Altar is where we should be looking now. Because if this is held, then Pegasilla is going to win the break here. They're gonna have a point advantage at the start of the match, which is a big deal. And it may not seem like much to just have one altar, but yeah, it's that 750 point swing.
There it is.
Right, which is
got it.
Big. Did they?
They just got it. They did
They
get the points.
initial
Look at the point
points?
total. They did 4,000 to
So they got the
2,800,
points,
and they lost
then
it.
the defending team, or I guess the NewV team, took it back, huh? Wow.
We said it. It was
That's
the
big.
Mackins, and that's exactly a huge point that just got shown right there on that Desert Altar. Seconds later, NewV takes that structure back, but points are lost.
You remember when we were saying that seconds matter?
That's what
That was it.
Yeah.
Seconds matter. If it comes down to it, we'll remember this moment where it was only a matter of seconds as the difference between winning and losing that structure for the initial cap. Wow. Okay, chat. You got to be feeling the hype. And Casilla, I would argue, the underdog team in this matchup, getting a great opener.
I will say NewV positioning a little timidly compared to what they have in the middle compared to 64 PL. I do see a lot more marches coming from the top left, but maybe not enough. And I do see a fight at the top of that lane. Looks like red team members from NewV coming from the top as well as the middle, and maybe doing a little bit of disruption of reinforcements. That should give the middle team already there the chance to move up, and that's exactly what they're doing. Repositioning in front of that temple with about 3 minutes until this arc spawns. There's plenty of time for NewV and 64 PL to bring their marches in, but looks like the top lane is going to be difficult for the blue team to reinforce.
You know, this is really interesting, and I want to call out a key insight here, which is that I think the reason NewV didn't engage here, even though they have more numbers, is that it would be actually very disadvantageous. The reason is that with still almost 3 minutes until the arc spawns in, you'd end up sad facing enemy marches that could make it back to the mid fight before the arc is even spawned. So I like the restraint on the majority of these NewV marches not engaging in this fight, and only the NewV marches that needed to reset anyways, that are mid-level health, yellow and red, are actually moving into the Pancasilla 64 PL ball and blue. So I think this is smart restraint being exercised here by NewV.
Yeah, I agree. It's controlled chaos, right? Like they're doing just enough that they need to do to disrupt the flow, giving NewV time to really form a solid ball. And now they're turning into a little bit of a V there, a little bit of a backwards delta formation. I'm wondering if they're wanting to surround. I've seen a lot of surrounding middle fights going on lately versus your typical ball. I think that's going to help engage more troops more quickly. More surface area equals more damage. I think that's the idea behind it anyway, but one march getting very brave from 64 PL saying, "Hi, I'm going to come to the middle. Please reset me because I'm almost dead. Please and thank you." I would not oblige. If I was NewV, I would make him sit there and wait and make him walk back with no sad face, but unfortunately, somebody getting a little overzealous there from the red team.
Yeah, it's a good call out. They just should just leave that march
comes
alone.
another one.
Let it do whatever it's doing. I am really surprised, however, at this point. I don't know why NewV waited this long for the mid fight. So it's interesting to see what they think their magic number is for the time of the engage. My interpretation of what we see on the screen is that they're in control of this mid fight based on their numbers. So I'm shocked they didn't engage sooner. To me, that signals they must think waiting longer is better. And that's why they're waiting. But I'm still, again, surprised because we see a lot of structures flashing on the screen. To me, it is obvious 64PL is going building game. And the longer that NewV is just standing here, the more time that 64PL gets to just demolish these structures. They own 3 altars. They're pressuring an obelisk. They're pressuring another altar. They're pressuring Shrine of War. Defensive formation. Okay, mystical formation, but no war drums, I think, for 64PL.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for more.
And that, to me, I find really interesting as well. I mean, I think these marches are just here to stall. I think they're just playing the building game. Could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty even right now, but I do see a lot more blue starting to go back. I think you're right, though. The lack of skills on the other side is starting to show here. They do own, so when I say they, 64PL does have a solid structure game going right now during this mid-fight, and it's kind of showing with all the marches going back with sad faces, but they do own an extra altar and shrine, which is very, very nice to have from a points per minute standpoint. Let's see if that's going to outweigh this maybe possible, well, definite loss of the arc, at least at the beginning of this fight.
I mean, this is very one-sided looking. Look at all these sad faces. They're all going one way.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it as the fight was prepping. Like, NewV just had way more marches in this fight. And Chad is saying that actually both skills were used by both War Drums and Mystical. I actually only saw the Mystical for 64PL, so I might have just missed it. Either way, that is a commanding victory for NewV in the middle.
Oh, I mean, big time. It's just a sea of red at this point, which is obviously a very commanding victory indeed. But again, 4 altars now in the color blue for 64PL. That's exactly what they could really take advantage of. Now 3, losing the Sky Altar on the top lane. But that's disruption points have been done. This is exactly what they need to do to make sure that this lost arc for 64PL doesn't impact them too much from a points per minute standpoint. 2,500 point lead for 64PL right now, and this is a 3,000 point arc. So this is basically a knotted up match. And I think 64PL is looking to bank some extra points from these structures being in their favor.
Yeah, I think if you were writing this up, this went more or less how you would have wanted as 64PL. This to me did not feel like they were playing for the arc. It feels like they very intentionally did not go for winning the arc. They just went to sort of mix it up a bit and hold up the marches. And I feel like one of the strategies we saw earlier in the day, I can't remember which team it was, baiting the enemy back further away from their starting area was an even stronger run of that same play. But here we go. 3 altars for 64PL. Can they actually hold these buildings long enough? I mean, this looks like they've got certainly more than enough presence.
Yeah, this is their home desert altar on the top lane, so they've got plenty of presence right there from the obelisk to come down and reinforce. And again, I don't know if it's necessarily they didn't want to go for the middle, but I do think the disruption in combination with maybe a feeling of of understanding that they can go both ways and go either structure game or heavy middle. With NewV coming up on that top lane and disrupting a lot of the incoming initial gathering from 64PL in the middle, I think there was an easy decision for 64PL leadership in this Grand Prix match to say, hey, okay, we're not going to get the people to the middle that we need to beat NewV in the middle fight here. Let's just do enough to have what's there, make it interesting, and then push structures. And that's exactly what it looks like it happened, because they got 2 structures during that mid-fight and still are holding, with an Attila garrison, evidently, this desert altar that's supposed to be in NewV's hands.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see an Attila on the field. I mean, I suppose you could put equipment on an Attila and put it in there as a captain as kind of like a panic swap to that, because you have a Jad somewhere else if you're that player, but I don't think Attila is the ideal captain here. I don't know. This is unusual.
I wonder
Here
how long
comes
it's
the
going to take
rally.
them to get this back. Yeah, let's see how this plays out, Chisco.
Yeah, I mean, it's Attila on Attila. Unusual, to say the least.
Oh, that's a
There's the arc
dangerous
strolling
arc.
casually by. I do wonder if
okay.
this was the safest route to run that arc. Do you think that 64PL actually has a possibility of swapping onto the arc here?
I didn't hear the last part of that, but re-ask your question so I can understand it.
Do you think that 64PL might actually swap onto the arc? It looks like now they've also lost the altar. That's probably not going to happen. For a time, it seemed like they had the numbers that maybe they could have gone for that.
Yeah, they may continue to go after the altar again, but I think they may be a little short on players with 2 rallies going by this Shrine of War on the top lane for NewV. This is likely a Desert Altar rally and an Obelisk rally, or maybe it's a City rally to ferry more reinforcements for the Desert
Bold
Altar rally.
strategy.
I'm interested to see which one.
Yeah, this is what top tier
now.
teams do to rally and capture an opposing side structures instead of marching downfield. They'll actually send rallies at cities for the extra march speed. It takes a high level of coordination, but the payoff is real. The downside is you lose individual march flexibility here. You can see those marches might have been valuable at the Shrine of War, but you know, they figure if 64PL wants to send all these troops down to the Shrine of War and they want to not be at their altar, we'll go take your altar. Altar's worth more points, right? So that's what I think is happening here.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great spot for 64PL to be in. The arc is still not captured, so there's no rush to get to the middle and get your troops back to your city. Hold this Shrine of War as long as possible. Try and get some points from it alongside of denying the points per minute for NewV. I think this is exactly what they want to be doing. Now, they did lose their Desert Altar. Those rallies did what they were supposed to do for NewV. Desert Altar now in red, what's supposed to be blue, on that top lane just above the screen to the left. So looks like 3 altars now in favor of NewV, which is exactly what they needed to do to make this arc count for a little bit more, because right now they're down by almost 4,000 points with a 3,000 point arc in their pocket.
This is a big deal. I mean, coming into this matchup, my sense was that NewV was the favored team. Now that we've been watching the matchup unfold, 64PL is ahead on points, but scoring this arc will make it closer. So it's unclear to me which team is actually going to be dominant in this game. I think that only more arcs will tell how that story is going to unfold. You see battling here for the Shrine of War. Looks like this is going to settle down. Players refreshing their low marches by hitting cities. Love that tech play of using Centurion as the captain. Probably even no secondary. The goal is to actually make it difficult for a player to reset their marches, which you can see just happened on screen, and bring them home faster to get a fresh march.
When you've got all those troops, I don't know if any nonsensical commander will make make a difference if we're really thinking about it. Because the white numbers alone will do it. You won't even get a skill off usually. But I do like the same play. I wonder though, in this mode, if it defaults to Centurion and you need to make sure that you change it effectively. Maybe that's what's actually happening here. Maybe we're giving
Centurion.
Okay, because usually it wouldn't, obviously, because you have better commanders. But good play nonetheless if that's what's happening. But again, I will say NewV holding these altars for a long time, really consolidating that point delta that 64PL had built up for itself. And now we're starting to see the point totals turn here with about 3,600 point total in favor of 64PL, but they still don't have their own Desert Altar back this goal. So, I mean, this arc in combination with the point totals starting to get a little more even, I think NewV's starting to turn the tables here on the point per minute game.
I am really impressed with how 64PL is held, but next gen 1V at 3 altars, it's gonna start ticking up a lot of points, and there it is on the board, by the way. 410 per minute for blue, 660 for red. So this gap is gonna start to narrow unless 64PL can at least even up the board, and then they're gonna have to start to get some arcs, I think, in order to actually keep this lead.
Yeah, this is really starting to kind of look like the last match, right? You know, we had not the last match, the first match of the day, where we had Camo kind of dominating the structure game and really generating a nice set of points against 1V, and now we have NewV kind of starting out the same way, so maybe there's a little bit of sharing of strategy here. Obviously, they're in the same kingdom, same alliances, so there's a very good possibility of that, and maybe you're starting to see the same thing play out here where, you know, NewV and 1V started out a little slow from the points per minute game, but now look at that, 300-point game in favor of 64PL, capturing the arc there about 5 seconds ago, so now we're all knotted up like nothing's happened, basically, for the entirety of the first 20 minutes of this match.
You know what we don't see on the field? Jad Attila. Yeah. You know what we do see a lot of on the field for both sides here is actually Cyrus Nebu. It's very interesting. It's very interesting to see the choice they've made here. And march speed, right? All super valuable.
Yeah,
Utica
interesting
Prime,
combo.
all over the field. I mean, look,
much.
I keep making the joke. It's like the secret handshake is what commanders you're supposed to use, but like it's all right. XY primary, Nevsky primary, Boudica primary, some Ethelfleb primary. Like it's so homogenous. Guam primary, Cyrus primary. Like that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Not many Scipio primaries at this level of the game.
Are you surprised?
Yeah.
No Moctezuma?
Not really. I mean, there's no barbarian situations here, and I don't farm faster, so I think Moctezuma's not going to be in the play here. Maybe Jadwiga Moctezuma is the next meta. We just haven't found it yet. Now, again, 3 altars again in favor of NewV. Back to the plus and the positive column for NewV on the points per minute train, and now they are up by 200 points, 300 points now in favor of NewV. So 64PL needs to stop the bleeding as 6.5 minutes starts the timer for the mid fight. I already see blue team members going to the middle in the picture you're staring at right now. That's very early, but if you want to get a dominant position in the middle, this is kind of the time that you need to do it, but you also need to get your structures back and maybe press a little bit of aggression towards your enemy structures to help slow them down while also coming to the middle. I'm curious what the middle's going to look like here in about 30 seconds.
Look at the points per minute. 180 for 64PL.
Yeah,
and
very
590 low for NewV. I mean, they translated that arc capture and point deficit into a solid 500-600 point lead now. So NewV is doing what they need to do to counter that structure gameplay that 64PL went for. It's like I said, I think 64PL has got to actually go for this arc, and they need to win it. And if they can win this arc, they're going to be positioned to potentially win the game. If they can't win this arc, and we see now that NewV is really doing well with these structures, I think they're going to be in a spot of trouble.
Yeah, I agree. I will say, though, you know, when we're talking about the mid-fight, right, we just saw how dominant NewV was, and obviously their counterpart 1V doing the same thing. They can't win it at all costs. That's going to be the problem. And again, it's about allocating your resources properly, allocating them ahead of time so that you have them where they need to be before the train from the opponent's side comes into play. You see a huge contingent of NewV pouring into the middle from the top lane here, right beside their desert altar. Obviously, I'm sorry, their Shrine of War. Obviously, looks like 64PL trying to take this before the mid-fight, but that Jadwiga is looking robust. Chisco, very strong. I don't think they're going to have enough to take that, even without a whole lot of reinforcements coming in. You might have one person maybe come in to hopefully hold that for NewV if you're a NewV fan. Otherwise, it looks like that Jadwiga is looking very strong.
Yeah. I like the Boudica Tommy tech here. One player bringing a Tamaris for the Poison Diva. Actually pretty cool.
Bomber build. Cavalry
looking like a really good choice with all these archers running around the field. Seems like meta is to run 2 archer marches at a time, a Boudica march and a Nebu or Cyrus primary march, which makes sense. They're such powerful commanders. I personally use those in the open field in KVK. I love it, man. And here we are. 64PL with what looks like less numbers, but the dominant position. 64PL is on top of the arc. NewV is behind the center. So they're not quite in the same position as 64PL. But does it matter? I would say probably no. Not really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing NewV really pile up the numbers here. Unless 64PL is an absolute master genius at stacking marches on top of one another to where they look like one march, it's looking like NewV may have the advantage here from a number standpoint already, although 64PL does have the positioning, but they're right on top of the temple, so there's no buffer at all if they don't move forward a little bit. If they're not the one to engage, there's going to be no buffer once this battle kicks off, and with likely both teams having maximum alliance skills, and by the way, Obelisk and Shrine on the top lane are now in favor of NewV, this is going to get contentious very quickly.
Big swap to counteroffensive. Commonly deployed tactic in Ark of Osiris to start with one alliance skill, and before a big fight, switch to this one. I am surprised to see that swap so early of the skill being deployed. That to me feels premature. Normally that's like a last arc decision. So it could be that they're going to... I don't know. They haven't delayed the arcs long enough. I don't think this will be a 2-arc game. Uh-oh. I really don't like this. 64PL running away, but way too late. What are they up to, Drago? I am really confused here. They're just getting shredded.
Maybe it was a little delayed. Yeah, that might have been a delayed command, and people are just paying the price, and ultimately the mid team is really paying the price here.
This is getting worse.
Ultimately,
by the
arc is going to go NewV's way if it keeps this up. Spread out considerably as well.
Are they just running away entirely?
I mean, they do have 3 altars now. Maybe this is again another feint.
It's a feint?
Very expensive feint.
Is this a feint?
I mean, it could be.
I think it is. I'm
just really spreading everybody out
at what we're seeing here.
Engaging everybody.
If you were going to run
to the death from 6. Oh wow! And now the riposte.
That has got to be one of the most poorly timed to the deaths I've seen.
Yeah.
Not only...
It just seems like everything's 5 seconds behind.
Yeah, I don't know. Either there's a delay or that was a play of desperation. I don't get it. NewV pops Heaven's Grace.
Heaven's Grace used. Oh, jeez.
There's just not enough marches here for 64PL to do what they're trying to do here. I mean, that...
And war drums.
Feels like it was a cool idea, but not well executed.
Yeah.
The play was good. The execution was not, right? Like, I think what they were trying to do was a really cool idea, but the way it played out, they were too slow to react for the runaway, which meant that their marches got absolutely obliterated for some number of those marches, and then they decide we'll fight it anyways and use the most expensive skill. So even though they hugely disadvantaged themselves, they tried to swing back in. I mean, that just feels like a huge blunder if you're the planner for what you thought was going to happen and how it actually came together.
Could you imagine if they had maybe sneaky tactics a big group of marches towards like the back bottom of that lane, and they were dragging everybody into it unaware that there was 40 marches sitting there hidden? But that's the only reason I think that they should have done what they did. Otherwise, again, like you said, poorly executed on the to the death skill. There was a lot of wasted time moving versus fighting. That's a very short-term skill for very high impact, and it's a lot of points, like you said. So they've got to execute a little bit better on that. Looks like NewV does have the arc and is moving, but it was grabbed on the wrong side. So now they've got to go through their own murder ball to get back to the correct side with that arc, and they are starting to move it. Looks like it'll go down here in just a moment, though. Good chunk of blue players sitting there, although they are mostly dead, so I'm not sure if it'll actually happen.
Yeah, that was pretty rough. So 64PL is in a pretty tough spot now. They have fired off the single most important skill for an arc mid-fight. I do like the rally. Rally canceled. They're going to go for the carrier. Love to see it. Don't know what it'll accomplish, but I think that's a pretty cool play. Rally brought 2 marches in the middle. Unfortunately, one of those marches is either not paying attention or decided not to actually go for the carrier and is walking back to their city. GG.
And it's a Jadwiga Nevsky primary, which is actually not bad from an arc carrier standpoint. The speed of that march is actually pretty considerable. Nevsky has a great skill march speed bonus, and Jadwiga being a mobility commander, also when hit, also increases movement speed a little bit too with talents and everything else. So it's actually a very solid march. Look how fast it is.
Yeah, carrier's still going.
How is this carrier
staying alive,
so
baby?
Long? It's staying alive, points baby. For like 5 minutes.
Dude, that carrier's got a heck of a stiff arm, knocking down player after player.
It's a great
Look at
analogy
that.
because that's basically what it's been doing. Yep.
Yeah. First one came up, nope. Second one came up to try to take the arc, nope.
Double stiff arm. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
So it looks like a pretty free and clear breakout for NewV, grabbing this arc and heading towards their own obelisk on the top side. I think there will be a little bit of holding here, but NewV looking pretty dominant. However, I looked up at the point total, and as dominant as NewV is looking right now, the point total isn't as devastating as I would have thought. It's only a 1,000-point game in favor of NewV. I think a lot of that had to do with 64PL holding that third altar while this fight was happening for as long as they did. But now everything is even, and NewV has a 3,500 point arc in their pocket. Rally obviously on this structure here for NewV, but it's not necessarily supported enough with all those 64PL marches to come and swarm it down with the reinforcements. Losing their Shrine of War though, on the bottom lane. It's starting to shift.
Let me jump in. Apologies, Drago. I do see in watching the stream on YouTube now at the same time as we're casting here, there does seem to be a little bit of a hiccup on the YouTube side of things. I can tell you from the caster side of things, we see the game in real time. The game is still happening. This is still going on. So hang tight while those technical difficulties are sorted out. We'll continue to narrate, although I suppose you won't hear this until potentially those get sorted out.
Yeah, I see the arc carry on the stream right now that you guys are seeing repeatedly playing over and over again. That battle has ended, people. Okay, so I want to make sure you're aware that's over. We're now knotted up. Both teams' structures are their own. It is currently a 600-700 point match in favor of NewV, but NewV is carrying that arc towards their top lane obelisk. So right now there's a lot of open field fights around the desert altars on the bottom lane too. The stream itself, it looks like, again, is just replaying that middle fight. Maybe it was so devastating that they just want to continue to show that and how to actually capture an arc properly and not let it drop from start to finish. But again, everything's even right now, Chisco. So I see a rally on the desert altar now. Looks like 64PL did take NewV's desert altar on the bottom lane. So again, disrupting that points per minute is going to be critical, Chisco, for 64PL to try and claw their way back into this match.
Man, looking at the scoreboard here, it's still pretty close, but work in the hand of NewV. That gap is going to widen quite a bit here.
Yeah, still continuing to see these fights around the NewV side from our perspective. Again, I'm going to try and describe this as best as possible so you guys get a visual in your mind from my extended vocabulary on what is happening real time on the screen. 3 out of the 4 altars blinking, 2 of which are in blue team's hands, 1 of which should be in NewV's hands. Shrine of War getting swarmed down and counter-swarmed on the NewV side top lane. 64PL is trying their best to take this structure along with the last remaining altar that NewV possesses, which is the Sky Altar on the top lane. The more minutes and seconds that 64PL can continue to hold these altars, the more they can extend their points per minute total to be able to go ahead and catch up from a point standpoint. Because right now, 500-point victory currently for NewV. They have a 500-point delta in their favor, with a 3,500-point arc still sitting at their obelisk on the top lane. Looks like they did lose their own Sky Altar, did 64PL, so it is 2-2 again. All these buildings are currently blinking, though. Lots of rallies, lots of swarms, lots of garrisons, and now both opposing structures are blinking and switching now. So we have 2 of the altars on the top lane in 64PL's favor, and 2 of the altars on the bottom lane blinking and red. So it's now knotted up, although it's not the way it's supposed to be. Looks like both structures for 64PL starting to flip again, so now they have 3. It's really going back and forth. This is a huge disruption point for both teams. We have a 700-point game in favor of NewV right now. It's continuing to stay knotted up. We're not really seeing a whole lot of movement from the points per minute standpoint because all the buildings are flipping. all of them are going red. Then all of them are going blue. Huge push towards the top lane again on 64 PL's structures, the altar, the shrine, both blinking. Same thing for NewV on the same top lane. Could we see a complete flip? There you go. Sky Altar going blue here, Jiskel.
You know, I think if you're in NewV's shoes, you're feeling pretty good about how things are going. And I think you've just got to go for a final arc here at your leisure, at your convenience for the timing, right? If you're NewV, you're going to swing in, you're going to use to the death. You know the enemy doesn't have it. You might even wait till you've got 10 points to make the play. You pop War Drum's Mystical to go with it. And that feels like a pretty strong entry. What do you think?
I think a lot of things. One, right now, I feel like I'm hoping that we're still being recorded at least so that people can come back and watch this match once this video finally posts. But right now I see a black screen on the game. Chat is still live, though. It looks like there's a bunch of people still typing. I do still see the match, though, and it is still contentious. It's very even, very much even. 19-5 to 18-9 in favor of NewV. But all these buildings are starting to continue to flick, blinking non-stop. I mean, the structure game is on point right now. Obelisk is still being held, or Arc is still being held at the Obelisk by NewV.
Yeah, I am hyped to see the last Arc brawl unfold, because the score is actually almost knotted up here, which is pretty surprising with the exception of the Arc. I wonder if you could theoretically... Oh, there we go. Arc is scored. I wonder if what they could do is the same play we saw earlier today, where they just go all buildings instead of the last Arc if you're NewV. Do you think that's the play? You already have enough of a lead that you just edge up on buildings and it's GG, right?
I mean, that's kind of what 1V did at the very beginning, didn't they? Like, they were right there. They had a little bit of an edge point-wise, maybe 2,000-3,000 points, and then they turned on the structure game in a big, big way and really extended that lead to 10,000 points or 8,000 points or whatever it ended up being.
I mean, it's NewV. It's the same team as 1V. Same kingdom. Same family. They probably run the same playbook. If I were betting money right now, Drago, I actually think they're gonna go buildings. I think NewV goes buildings. Although the only reason they might not is because they know they have the to the death advantage. Right? That's actually the only reason why you might just be like, nah, we go Arc anyways, is you know you're so advantaged for that fight.
Yeah. It's so unfortunate 64 PL used what they did in that last mid fight.
Yeah, it will be interesting to talk to their players to see kind of what happened there.
What happened? Yeah, yeah, it's got to be an oh no moment or something.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear. I mean, I think these teams are really skillful, and that just didn't look like the sort of execution we would expect at this tier. With both the call to run away when they did, the time they fired off to the death. But you really only want to pop that off after your team is already engaged with the enemy, to minimize the amount of time that you spend doing normal attacks, and to just boom, right when you're landing on all your troops, you're getting to the death as you're skill cycling, and you just get the absolute maximum DPS possible, right? Like, I keep mentioning this, but I think it's helpful to retrain the way people think about mid fights. It's just like it's a DPS meter, and it's a DPS race. Who's got more DPS?
Yeah, more DPS wins.
So every little edge you can get is big, right? So, you know, I mean, I guess it's a perfect example of what we were talking about earlier, about how you don't want to be walking. Remember when I said that? Walking is the worst thing, and walking with to the death is the absolute worst thing that could happen here. But we see these desert altars under contention, 2 altars held by NewV. 64 PL really needs to move the needle on these structures and has to get the Arc. And given that they just saw 1V do the building game, I mean, they've just got to be really confused about what to do here.
Yeah, I know I would be. I mean, I'm not I'm not a genius when it comes to this stuff. I've just seen a lot, and I can talk about it, obviously, and obviously experienced it myself. But this is this is top tier content when it comes to these two teams being high level strategists. And the fact that 64PL is keeping this so close with NewV really coming in here as a dominant factor, I think that speaks a lot to 64PL's team. I just think, again, that mid fight really was a showcase of maybe NewV making 64PL panic just a little bit. I think, like you said, you want to maximize that to the death, and really 10, 15 seconds went by where some of the marches weren't even fighting with that buff, and that is a ton of DPS just not happening, and you definitely want to have that happen when you're talking about the mid fight. I mean, right now, both of the buildings, or all the buildings, are belonging to their respective owners, their expected owners, I guess I should say, and buildings still blinking with the arc being captured 3.5 minutes ago. We do have people coming into the middle now, 4.5 minutes until the next arc spawns. 64PL peeling off their own desert altar on the top lane, going towards the middle. If we get a picture from the other side, I'm assuming we would see the same thing from NewV, really kind of holding minimally this Attila Nevsky rally from 64PL. That's a great KBK rally, but maybe not the best Osiris League or Grand Prix rally. That's probably one of the first times I've seen that in this Grand Prix playoff. But again, all the buildings are currently owned by the people who are supposed to own them, and the mid fight is starting to heat up right now as far as positioning goes, with 64PL positioning very effectively around the front. But again, is it too close to? What do you think, Chisco? I keep seeing this from teams as far as positioning in front of the temple, and that's usually the right play, right? But this close, I feel like it kind of nullifies the point, which is to keep the opposing team away from the temple, unless you're the one that moves first towards the enemy, which is not what happened last time. They ran away. This is actually a detriment to you because you're not getting the advantage that you're wanting by creating the buffer, and you're exposing yourself right around the temple, giving the enemy the chance to grab it right off the bat.
Man, I just keep thinking, what would I do if I was the captain of the 64PL team right now? And I think the answer... I mean, I don't know. This is so rough. I think the answer would be to send a moderate team to middle and to go heavy on structures. I know that sounds really weird, but the only way you win from this position now, given that you don't have to the death, is if you both win the buildings and win the arc. Like, you have to win the buildings too. Do you see what I'm saying? I yes, think all in on the arc is playing to lose, because you'll even up the score a little bit, but I don't know that you can win.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, right now it's a 4,000 point game in favor of NewV, and I'm not sure what the points per minute's basically knotted up, 560 apiece. So you've got a chance here to get the arc and peel out and hold structures. That will even everything up. But I think you're right when it comes to actually strategizing about what to do next. The easy choice, right? The easy choice is to say, everybody get into the middle for the arc. We got to do it. Just get into the middle. Everything's going to be fine. But that might not necessarily be the case. I think that you're right. Sometimes it's better to give a little and take a lot on the other side from a structure standpoint.
Right. I mean, I think the safe play, nobody would judge you wrong or poorly for just running it down in the middle. But I don't think you can win this way. And let's see. Here's the engage from 1v. You can see, look how close together these 1v marches are. Pretty close. And yet again, we've got this really inconsistent move. Some people running away from 64PL, some people running in. Theirs to the death. I mean, this is a really textbook deployment of to the death here. Once your marches are fully committed and you know the enemy can't just outmaneuver you, then you drop the to the death. And at this point, given that they went to the middle instead of to the buildings, this is a big GG. I think they really should have gone for the buildings instead. And if they went for the buildings, then they could hopefully swing around and ambush arc with the team that went to buildings. And they have to get the best of both worlds. I mean, it's a Hail Mary, right? The chances that you pull that off against NewV are pretty low. But I think that might have been the stronger of the plays.
Yeah, that definitely could have been the way to go. I do see, like you said, a lot of blue marches going back.
Yeah, I mean,
beaten and bruised
that
and
is
dead. I mean,
that
that's about as
is
statement
brutal.
as you can get. Lots of
That
blue
is
marches heading back
brutal.
with
I mean, I
Saffron.
was just talking about damage per second. We count the sad-faced marches per
Dead per
second here
second.
as our our proximity metric. That is a fast cleanup of the middle. NewV grabs the arc in just a moment, and it's on the move. Double C going to try to slow the carrier, but that's not going to work out. This thing is a goner. Yeah, even the double C that was going for the carrier is like, you know what? I'll go somewhere else instead. I'm out.
Yeah.
Look at that.
It's unfortunate for 64PL. I mean, I think they did commit quite heavily to that middle fight. They did the best they could, but again, next gen 1v had the advantage on skills and took advantage of it. They're moving this arc back with basic impunity. You got one March, XY March, trying to do their best to drop it. That Nevsky, how strong that Nevsky is against the one March trying to hit it. Same thing happened last time. There was a Nevsky March pulling back the arc in the same fashion. It held up really well, though. Now you got a Nevsky with full troops coming in. Same thing with the Guan there. I think this will go down and at least delay the capture a little bit. There it goes. 64PL trying to do everything they can to maybe try and grab this, but right now they have all 4 altars, just cool. I mean, they're doing what they can from a structure game standpoint. They need to do more. They need to grab all these structures and hold them and delay this arc from capturing. I mean, there's only 9.5 minutes left. Could they possibly stop it from capturing altogether? Do you think they can pull that off?
You know, maybe we wrote this off too early. I don't know how they got all 4 altars because we've been watching the middle exclusively, but I'm not opposed to that. The middle is an interesting place to be. But if they can hold all 4 altars and somehow sneak by the arc, this might not be over.
Yeah, I mean, this could possibly. I mean, they have the war shrine there, right? And it is in favor of NewV. So, and look at all these marches coming in from 64PL on the other side. I think. Look at that, NewV turning back around, saying, "Oh no, we abandoned this a little too quick."
This is what I want to see, Drago.
Goodness.
This is it. This is what I wanted to see.
Wow.
This arc is in peril. Hello? Hello, NewV? Hello? You've got to defend this arc. This is not over. Now, where are they going to take this arc? I mean, they are afraid now to run to the Shrine of War, which is where they were going because they're getting ambushed. So now they've got to go to the outpost. The outpost is exactly where you want this to go if it's 64PL. That said, 64PL has lost their altar. They don't have the same board position they had previously. When they were holding all the structures, this was a lot more scary. I feel a little less terrified as NewV compared to how I felt before. But we've got a brawl on our hands.
64PL.
This is Arc Brawl number 2. This is going to be a full brawl over here. And you can see more and more marches are coming over. Although, NewV is securing their lead even further by taking 3 altars at this point. So, this is a really precarious spot to be in. And a really difficult spot if you're 64PL, because you need so many low probability events to sort of work out in your favor.
Look
Here
how
you can see
many
NewV adjusting. Yeah, NewV's adjusting in the way that they needed to. The window of opportunity rapidly closing for the play that, I mean, honestly, is the most entertaining that you could possibly have
Are they going to
hoped
capture it?
for.
Are they not going to capture it? Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's not over. But, like, it's not over. It really isn't.
Still.
Can you imagine, though, if 64PL had to the death now? It'd be a different story if instead of casting it when no one was around.
What if they had Mending Pouch like OV had last match and they could heal all their troops right there and take the field away?
Yeah,
oh, man, Jodwiga in that outpost.
Are they... Wait. They're gonna... Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
we're looking at a contentious outpost capture, but they got it. Did they get it? No, it dropped.
No, it's down.
Dropped.
No, it's down.
The arc is down.
Be a photo finish.
Wait, this is getting... Drago, the stars might be aligning for 64PL.
If they can snag this would be a massive
They picked up the arc
for them. This is the match.
And it scored. Wow! The arc is scored for NewV. giving them the lead that they need in a way that nobody expected it would go down. 64 PL left with the dust in their face of that art carrier, who barely made it into the outpost before it fell down. Jeez, that was close.
Wow, what a clutch move from NewV. And that Jadwiga, I think they deserve a dinner out, a nice steak dinner from the leader of the NewV team. And then again, whoever captured that arc was so clutch. Grabbing it, immediately dragging it into the garrison, knowing what was at stake. 64 PL could have quickly turned the tides on this match and made it a victory, clutch victory from the jaws of defeat. NewV, though, standing tall, standing firm, and ultimately grabbing what remains of the points left in this match and likely securing their victory with a 6,000 point lead now. Wow, because that would definitely have done it. It's a 7,000 point delta with that arc. That would have done it. 1,000 points, and I think 64 PL also is provisioning pretty heavily too. I think they've got a nice total.
I mean, that was honestly about to be. That honestly might qualify as the one of the most exciting moments of the day. Was what was going on right there. And you're right to call out the carrier and the garrison for both holding on for dear life and picking up that arc and scoring it. You know, it's really difficult to hold that garrison and allow us to explain this a little bit more. The problem is that the outpost has capacity for only 500,000 troops. For those of you that are keeping track, that's less than 2 marches worth of troops after you pop expansions. And they have expansions in these matches, by the way. But the problem is that you want your carrier to also get into the outpost. So if you have too many troops in the outpost, the carrier march is too large and can't get in. And that means they probably just get wrecked in the field and never actually score it. So for things to work out the way that it did, where there was enough stuff in the garrison that it didn't fall to getting swarmed, and there was just enough troops in the march to actually join the thing, it's honestly a miracle that that worked out the way that it did for NewV.
I mean, could you imagine? So for those of you that are rewatching this right now, there's an issue with YouTube Live where the 1,300 people that were watching this in real time got disconnected from the stream. So we're casting like you're all there, but you're not there. And I'm sitting here typing in chat how sad I am that you are missing, probably so far, at least so far. We obviously have a 4th match to go here. The most contentious and exciting match of the day. And that could have been such a huge moment for 64 PL to get the victory right there with 3 minutes left of this match. But again, I gotta say, NewV clutched it and did exactly what top tier teams do, and they shut down the nonsense from 64 PL and said, no, this is our arc. We won it fair and square in the middle, and we're going to capture it. That's exactly what they did. But huge shout out to 64 PL, made this match an unbelievable one to watch. I really am sad for you guys to miss this live, because the excitement that I know Chisco and I both had in these last 10 minutes was palatable. I mean, just incredible action from both sides. Both teams doing exactly what they needed to do to win, but NewV coming out on top, having that advantage of it being their structure to begin with, and holding it. That Jadwiga is so good, isn't she, Chisco?
Jad is insane, man. I first didn't think she was all that impressive when I saw her kid. I was like, I don't know. I mean, is it good? And over time, I've really come to appreciate the strength of Jad. I mean, I really felt like Xeno was the play in almost all situations, and it's obviously not the case. And the more powerful and relevant archers have become, the more relevant Jad has become as a garrison. And with the new commander to pair with it, already in the game but not yet available to players, I think in the coming weeks, we're going to see an interesting shift in the meta. I don't know if the new Cav garrison will be meta in all situations in Arc, because YSS lets you dump any troop type in there, and it's valuable. And I think that will have really big implications on how the top-tier teams both select marches to bring in the field and where they put them. Oh, look at that, 64 PL, Bog Down on the bar. You know, Bog Down is actually better than people give it credit. It's got a slowing effect to it, but you also remove 30% enemy defense, which is nice. Let me just pull up that effect. We've got 1 minute and 30 left in this matchup here, and I'll read to you exactly what it does. I think it's really important to refresh ourselves on exactly what all these abilities do. as I'll remind you that top tier teams will really study this to find every edge that they can get. So if I go to the skill section of the rules, Bog Down reduces the speed of up to 30 enemy troops in the area by 50% and reduces their defense by 30% for 30 seconds. Cooldown is 720 seconds.
Yeah, no, it's a great skill.
Speaking of
I think
skills,
just people favor some of the other ones are a little bit more effective. But tell me about the new skill.
You're spot on. Well, what I was going to say, speaking of skills, and I think we just keyed into the same idea, is I think it would be nice if every season there was a tuning of these skills so that the ones that were used the least would get a little bit of a buff, right? To sort of balance them out. Doesn't need to be big, but just season over season, right? Add a couple, 100 healing factor to a heal, a little damage to the damage abilities, right? So that it's a more about the options available to you as opposed to like, everybody uses these skills, they are the meta. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Heck, I'd be game for all new skills every season, Drago. I think it'd be pretty cool. Make people figure out the meta every time. But regardless, the dust has settled. The scoreboard is awfully close. And this would have been, I think, in 64PL's favor if they had scored that last arc, but they did not. It was scored by NewV. Next Gen 1V, the winner of the third Arc of Osiris Grand Prix matchup of the day. Wow. That was very fun to cast, and I hope that when you all are watching this recording, it'll be exciting for you as well to catch that moment that just caught us all by surprise. So that was just really an incredible matchup, Drago. Any thoughts you have about what we just witnessed? Because I am still astonished by a number of things that we saw.
Well, first off, I feel lucky enough to be able to have watched it because during this cast, obviously, YouTube Live went down in the middle of it, which denied you fine people the ability to watch it with us. But luckily, we were able to still see it and cast it for you. So hopefully you're able to come back in here and watch the upload after the live is over. That being said, that match was just incredible. I think everybody expected, for the most part, NewV to win. I think everybody expected it to be a big one, like the way JST dominated OV, but it couldn't have been more wrong. 64PL could have won that match at the very beginning.
Yeah, that was incredible. I think the scoreboard just tells a very different story than how it actually went down. It really, you look at the score and it's like, okay, like that's a W for NewV. It was, not in the bag, but that's enough of a lead that it's like they got it. But that was so much closer for a moment in time than that scoreboard just will ever tell the story of. Speaking of which, hopefully in a moment, we'll get a look at the MVP of the matchup here and some stats from the game. Definitely eager to get a look at those. I'll be really curious to see what the Sev wound ratio was like. Which team actually was winning the field. And a closer look at the points for each team. I know we saw at the very end, we didn't talk about it, but we saw the T1 Siege coming back in for 64PL. So we know that there was provisioning there. I assume that NewV is following meta. I mean, you can sort of expect NewV to lock up over 4,000 points in provisioning. In fact, pretty much every top tier team. I mean, if they do any less than 3, I'm astonished. So let's see. Hopefully in a moment, we'll get a look at the stats, see where that's at.
There it is. Yep.
Here we are. Odin, 200,000. Individual score, 199,569. That is from Pancasilla, by the way, 64PL. In a moment, we'll get a look at the full scoreboard here. This is why I mentioned, by the way, when we saw players close in that 300,000 range earlier today, I was like, man, that feels like a big number. I mean, even for unlimited troops. That's a, it might be because people were just resetting marches on the city, right? If you're the most forward-ported player, that's where people would go, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess we'll see in just a moment here.
Yeah, I think this was a little low comparatively, but I was about to say I wanted to get it before this came up, but that's how they do us. So 10,000 point or 10 million kill delta in favor of NewV. I expected NewV to have a higher number, Chisco, but the matches, with the exception of this one, have all been really, really close. Like 3-4 million either way. Like, it hasn't really been a 10,000 or 10 million point delta like we see here right now. So huge shout out to NewV for dominating the open field. Obviously, those are from the middle fights in my opinion. Yeah.
I think we can attribute almost all of that delta to that second mid fight, which just really felt like it went entirely wrong.
Oh man,
64
if they didn't
PL.
do that, I wonder how things would have changed.
I think it'd be a very, very different board for the kills, and I think that fight really was what set that. But I this scoreboard just really doesn't tell the story. I mean, that one 5 to 10 minute window where 64PL had the possibility of scoring the arc and winning the game. I mean, if they scored that arc, they win the game, right? Yes.
Yeah. I think it would have been like within 400 points one way or another.
They would have won
been
by
so
like
close.
500 points. I mean, that was actually an astonishingly close game.
Less.
I mean, if there's a lesson here, I think it might just be that taking it to the outpost is almost always the most dangerous place to go. I mean, I don't know, man. It just feels like a really rough spot to go. Interestingly, 34 out of 30 people played from the next gen 1v team. So I'd be curious to hear if that's a part of their strategy to sub players in the middle, or if sort of something else went down where they brought other players in. Either way, interesting to note that they, unlike all the other matches today, brought in some of those subs throughout the matchup. You know, normally you do that in Ark of Osiris regular gameplay because you want everybody to get some rewards, but you know, that's not how the Grand Prix works. Either way, let's get a look now at the replay. Bunch of things going down on the screen. First and foremost, you'll notice no siege leaving the starting area. And also, I said that NewV was going to get at least 3k worth of provisioning. They actually didn't, which was an interesting observation from earlier. But here we can see the initial battles at the Desert Altar, and the screen was looking mighty red. Here is that first brawl for the Ark. This is where, I believe, 64 PL, although they don't win this Ark, they do hold all 4 altars at the time that this Ark is being grabbed. So, very interesting play here. Bringing marches to the center for the Ark, but not going all in on the Ark. Then we get a look around. Score is in the favor of 64 PL because of that structure game, although the Ark is in the hands of NewV, and then they cap it. So this starts to even things up, but 64 PL had an honestly great start to the game. But this to the death play was really, really catastrophic for the mid fight. And as I was saying earlier with Drago, I would attribute these just really big delta in the kills for each team to how that mid fight went down. Now from here, things I think do pick up in a really, really interesting way. With 10 minutes left in the match, the Ark is going to where they would think is safe, and then it's not safe. The players from 64 PL abandon the idea of going for the buildings and instead gun right for this Ark. Now they're able to contest this Ark, and this Ark goes to the worst possible place to try to score an Ark. I'm not saying it was the wrong choice, I'm saying this is the worst place to have to score an Ark, which is at an outpost. And I would almost say magically, NewV is able to score that Ark and win the game. Unbelievable. This means, by the way, that NewV advances to the next round. They'll be battling against the winner of the 254 OLPA matchup, which happens at 18 UTC. We'll see you back here in about an hour for that matchup. Very much looking forward to casting it. Take care, and we'll see you real soon.